About 400 years ago, the first boats full of African slaves began to arrive at the docks of Boston. Among these was a vessel named the Phillis. Aboard this boat was a 7-year-old girl shipped from South Africa with no clothes and no family to protect her. Alone and afraid, she bravely accepted this new challenge of her life. For Susanna Wheatley, she was exactly what she wanted, a young girl for her to nurture and teach to be a proper personal slave. But Susanna was soon to find that she would be much more than just another slave. Phillis began to show an interest in learning from an early age, even attempting to write letters on the wall with chalk or coal. Susanna's daughter, Mary, realizing her talent for learning, happily began giving her lessons in her mother's room on a little desk that was bought especially for Phillis by John Wheatley, the head of the Wheatley house. The whole family supported Phillis. Before she was 15, she was fluent in Greek, Latin, and English, and an expert in history, astrology, and geography. Phillis was held at the highest respects for a black slave and was treated with great dignity. Although she was still not permitted to play with the other white children, she was also not permitted to play with the other uneducated black slaves. Phillis lived a lonely life filled with books and maps and words, but soon her boredom became too much to contain. At the age of 12, she began writing poems about what she saw and who she met. At 18 years of age, she had completed her first book, poems on various subjects, religious and moral. She was unable to find anyone to publish her poems, although she and Susanna had published several small advertisements in the Boston Gazette for subscribers. So off they went, Susanna and Phillis together, to England to find a worthy publisher. In London, they found Selina, Countess of Huntingdon, who acted as a patron to help her publish her first book and made Phillis the very first published African poet. America loved Phillis. They thought that the idea of an African poet made their nation more independent, but people were beginning to lose interest and concentrating their focus more on the Revolutionary War than on poems. But Phillis was not about to let them forget who she was. The war was at its highest, and George Washington was leading America towards victory. Phillis saw her opportunity and wrote an inspiring letter and poem glorifying the amazing warrior George Washington. She was even privileged enough to read her poem to George Washington and meet him personally. Some say that Phillis was not loyal to her home and never truly acknowledged her roots. Some think that a person in her position of high-class social status could have made a real difference in the way slaves were treated. We cannot know her situation or understand it perfectly. We do know that she wrote a poem called On Being Brought to America. She described her coming to America as a salvation. She says,
"'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land, taught my benighted soul to understand that there's a God and a Savior too."
We may never know what her feelings were exactly about this subject, but we can not assume so quickly that she completely dismissed the thought of making a difference. Phillis married John Peters, a freed slave, and they settled into a happy home in Boston. But every writer has their struggles. John was unable to hold a job, the war made this even more difficult, and was incarcerated due to debt in 1784. Phillis bore 3 children, all of whom died at an early age. She attempted to write another book of poems, but was unable to find a publisher in the times of war. She died alone in her home from unknown causes in 1784 at the age of 31. Phillis was not someone who gave up easily. Her dreams were fulfilled because she herself made them a possibility. She sets an example for women or anybody who lacks courage or faith in themselves. Her writing inspired people then and continues to inspire people today. In her own words, she says,
"Divine humanity behold, what wonders rise, what charms unfold.